have a distinguished lecture, then we have a presentation of some works who actually it's a prize awarding session, and I think that the subject is certainly very interesting, especially to Italians nowadays, the economics of illegal activities and corruption. I needed to remind my Italian auditors that, of course, this is top of the news just now, and so Professor Schneider's lecture, which he introduces this afternoon, comes at a very right moment. We have here, I think I could call you Professor Shadow Economy. I mean, you have established a reputation. I mean, I was very glad to meet you because I've been quoting you for a long time. And you regularly keep track of irregular economy, then you extended your activities to keeping track of corruption and illegal money movements. You were quoted 2 weeks ago in the Sole 24 Ore for your estimation of Greek illegal money movements into Austria. So you have a very detailed map of that, and that is certainly very interesting. Of course, the fact that we have uncertainties about the name is a telltale thing. We used to call it black, then it was politically incorrect, and so we stopped doing that. Then we said it was submerged, and sometimes in Italian, in fact, we usually say submerged economy, but then shadow was perhaps more glamorous, and to this we add, as a special side of the shadow economy, the illegal economy. And to this we might add the bribes and their economic effect. So I think you have a wide-ranging view, and for this public you prepared a wide-ranging view of the illegal activities, shadow economy, and I'm very glad to give you the floor. Please.
I saw it's behind it. Yeah, wonderful. Thank you. No, it's here. No, thank you. Yeah, thank you. So I'm delighted to be here. I thank you for the kind introduction, and I prepared a lecture also when saw what the three prize winners will present after me. I prepared a lecture in a general way, but I'm here, so if you have technical questions, estimation, theoretical ones, you can ask me after the presentation, of course. Yeah? But as I didn't know who is listening, and as this topic on average attracts a lot of people, I thought I make it in a more general, understandable way, and then, but if you have questions, in any case, for anything, you can of course ask me. After a short introduction, I will make some theoretical considerations. I will then present you estimation and the size of the shadow economies in Italy and other OECD countries, and I will of course focus on your country, only aggregate estimations. I know there are countries even I was involved in of disaggregate this, but this is today not my topic. And I think for the first time of your countries, I will show you the effects of corruption on the official economy. Yeah? So corruption is a different topic and has some connections to the shadow economy, but not so straightforward ones. And I will end with policy measures to reduce the shadow economy and corruption. Okay, this is an interesting topic, or hot scientific topic. I see this because it's this topic has draws a lot of political governance. Quite often, this may be right for corruption, but I don't think it's right for shadow economy, because shadow economy is a value added. It's something different than corruption. If you bribe someone and then buy for a public service not the best good, you have a damage, a clear-cut damage. No? If you repair a car and it works, you have a clear-cut produced value added, cheaper and off the books and evading taxes. But still, you have a value added. So the shadow economy topic is much, from a welfare perspective, much more difficult topic. Yeah? It's not so easy just to say, let's reduce this, everybody will be fine off. This is only valid if then everything would switch into the official economy, and you all know this is not the case, because it's much too expensive produced and wouldn't be demanded in the official economy to a much higher price. So, but I will differentiate between this. But we hear mostly in common policy measure increase effective punishment to get rid of the shadow economy and or corruption. Also in corruption you can have incentive-oriented measures. Yeah? One measure which works wonderful in Scandinavian countries, such to give you an example, is to tell a firm, so you have two options. If you bribe, you might win, and you might get the contract and you might make a profit, but if you have a whistleblower within you and if it gets publicly known that you have bribed, you will be expelled for 5 years from any public contracting. Now it's a pure incentive calculus the firm owner has to make. Should I bribe? I get the contract. Will no one tell it? Or should I not bribe? Try to be the best and get the contract. Yeah? And so also here one can have incentive-oriented measures, and I think one should also think of this. So if I have 3 goals with this lecture. I will show you the latest development of the shadow economies in OECD countries. As I said, I will concentrate in your countries and the neighboring countries. I will show the effect of corruption on the shadow economy and the tens of damage on the Italian official economy. Corruption is a much more difficult topic. It starts that we have, in principle, no good measure of corruption. We don't. We have Transparency International. This are questionnaires and expert interviews, which are highly sensitive whom you ask and how you ask. Very well. And whether corruption is a hot topic or not. In the last 4 or 5 years we had some hot debates in my country, in Austria, about corruption. And all of a sudden the general population was much more sensitive about corruption, and everybody thought oh, corruption has strongly increased in Austria. It didn't increase a lot, but the public awareness was all of a sudden over all the media. So there is no good measure of corruption. There are several ones, I will come to this, but to make you a bit sensitive. So this is an even more difficult topic, and about the policy measures I have already talked. Okay, also this is still a topic, even if I do this now for 30 years, what is a shadow economy? Yeah? Now here I say I use a more narrow definition and not the one of including crime, but of course there are overlapping areas. Here I said legal production provision of goods that are deliberately concealed from public authorities for these reasons, and as these reasons I think are obvious. I think I have to read this. Yeah? But here I try to concentrate on those part of the shadow economy which produces a value added. Yeah? Whether it's a small firm who has 3-4 workers on the official payroll and another 3-4 on the unofficial one. Yeah? And especially for your country and all over Southern Europe, this is a quite normal situation, or was a quite normal situation. It depends a bit from country to country. So, and this is now my working definition for a shadow economy, and of course I know we have under classical crime activities. Yeah? We have, as we discussed when we had a short meeting before, the House shadow economy. If you hire someone and pay him, her, it's a shadow economy activity. It might be an illegal worker, so that's the informal household economy. And there should be not included, but there are overlapping areas. The most prominent one also in your country, like in Austria, with classical crime activities, prostitution. Yeah? Whether it's legal or not, this is a different aspect, but quite often prostitution is linked with human trafficking and other things, so and goes into the area of classical crime. Household production is all this repair work, household activities, which sometimes are done in the shadow economy and sometimes not. So this is a problem. The definition of corruption is much more straightforward. It's the misuse of public power for private benefit. You can also have corruption between firms, yeah? I will not exclude this, yeah? And but the normal case is public power is exercised by bureaucrats. You want to have your driver's license, you have passed all exams, and as I showed from my study, especially for Greece, and you don't get it if you pay another 100 euros. Yeah? And the excuse is a very official one, or some document is missing, can take half a year. All of a sudden this document is fine, you know this from your country and I know it from mine. Yes, it's not so different. Yeah? And you have to make this is this petty corruption, this small corruption. This is much more dangerous for a country. If everyone has this feeling, oh, I have to bribe him, I have to bribe her, to get it, it's much more shapes people's mind with also willingness to pay taxes, willingness to believe this government is doing a good job, than if you compare it to the big corruption cases, which I'm not defending, but they don't have such a devastating effect. So, I said it here, I use the International Transparency Corruption Index. I'm well aware this index is heavily criticized, yeah, like all other indices measuring corruption. This one is especially criticized because you can criticize it. Is it comparable if you more or less ask Italian people compared to the Austrian people the same question about corruption, and the managers and the general population? It's a weighted measure of questionnaire results and expert interviews. Also, government officials are asked. So, whether you have then a comparable index between Italy and Austria, maybe this is so, but they use the same index also for Somalia, yeah? or Zimbabwe, where you have really extreme high corruption. Yeah? So, and what provokes the criticism is they make a ranking every year, and then the countries and the United Nations and a lot of institutions are looking, Austria has more corruption, or a developing country has much more corruption, so it can have also the direct policy effects. Now, as for measuring it, you see that it is quite difficult. I draw this figure that you see about our interesting thing is not the shadow economy and corruption, and we have these overlapping areas. Also, I didn't speak about pure tax evasion. Yeah, you also have pure tax evasion which have little to do or nothing with shadow economy activities, and we have these overlapping areas. So that is one reason why there is no precise way of estimating this. What are the main causes? I think I already talked about this. Most prominent still one is tax and social security burden, taxes, indirect and direct taxes, of course, intensity of regulations. And these two, if you look at estimations of the size and development of shadow, are always taken and mostly are found statistically significant. But here it's also for those who are interested in statistics. If you have always this course, no wonder that it is statistically significant in most studies. Yeah, quite often it's quite not so easy to have good public sector services measures. Yeah, about the quality of goods and services. Yeah, those of you who work in public finance. I was 11 years the rector of my university, and the ministry forced us, so what is your output? No, define the output of a university is quite tricky, because it's only publication, exams of students who left the universities. What is it? Yeah, is a publication in the American Economic Review 10 times better than one in a good Italian journal? It's not so easy, really, it's not so easy to define it. So it's quite seldom used. Also, people, now we have the European Value Service, so we have some data about tax morale, yeah. But you don't have it for every year, so it's also not so easy to use it for a lot of countries. It doesn't exist. Quality of public institution, yeah. Especially with corruption, yeah. While quite often corruption goes hand in hand with shadow economy. Yeah, we'll come to this. Also, public institutions is in the last 10 years. There's a lot of research now saying is shadow economy less or more in a system with direct democracy, in a system with federal system. If one looks at Switzerland, which has a strong direct democratic element and is a very federal country, one sees, at least there, it has a strong effect, having almost the lowest shadow economy in the world. So, but again, to fulfill ceteris paribus, it's not so easy to isolate these effects. Switzerland has also the lowest tax burden. Yeah? One could now argue, and you have a nice causality question, it has the lowest tax burden because of direct democracy, because people have a direct say in how much public goods and services they want. So it's, for those who are econometrically interested in all this, I treat this now case by case. We have, of course, severe problems of causality, and so that might give you the problem. What are the main indicators? Here we have quite often used the amount of cash in circulation. Since we have the euros, this is also a problem. What is the domestic amount of euros in Italy? Not as easy as it looks like. Yeah? It's not so simple that, like, you have, of course, official figures from the Italian central bank, yeah? But so that's the official GDP growth, official labor participation rate. Okay, these are the three which are mostly used. Yeah. Coming to shadow economy and corruption, we have here two lines of research and hypotheses about the interaction of shadow economy and corruption. One is substitutes, so they can be replaced wherever you do either or complements. Yeah? The empirical evidence of this is very mixed, and with colleague Axel Dreher, I did a lot of studies in this. So, as usual, to be cynical in econometrics, you get out what you want. You get out a substitute effect, you get out a complementary effect, or no effect. Yeah? It depends on the data, it depends how carefully you try to fulfill ceteris paribus. So very mixed is a polite phrase. We then thought we should at least make a different hypothesis, that there are substitutes in highly developed countries and are complements in developing countries. So this idea is in developing countries like Peru, which I know quite well, you have to bribe the local policeman sell it, and you can make a quite good business. So here we have a typical case as complements. You have to have both. In highly developed countries, the substitution effect is quite often observed. You make an offer in a public construction, and silently you use some parts in a shadow economy. You do it with subcontracts, a subcontract of a subcontract of a subcontract. So it's very difficult to find it. Yeah? It mostly comes only out in Austria if an accident happens. You know, why do you have workers from Albania in an Austrian construction place? Yeah? Then all of a sudden people look. But if you have these huge construction places where hundreds of people are working, no one stands in the morning and says, I have to see your certificate. What are you? Are you an Austrian or worker? Yeah? You know this from your country also. So here it's quite often so, or you bribe. Yeah? That's what I said. Then in highly developed. But again, even if you make this differentiation, we do not have clear-cut results. If you also make what is your fashion now, a meta-analysis, a type of survey, looking at all studies you find, you do not find a good empirical result here. What are the main causes of corruption? So the evidence is mixed. You will later see it on an estimation too. Quality of political and judicial indicators, this is clear. If you have a good system, then corruption should be lower. If you have a bad system, it should be higher. Corruption is also a type of mentality. Yeah? And I think, at least in Central and Northern Europe, people are making it themselves too easy to say all Greeks are corrupt. This is not correct. Yeah? And a Finn or a Swede or a Dane can't imagine how it would be if they would have lived 400 years under German occupancy. The Greek have lived 400 years under Turkish occupancy. No. So, and they only survived, I overstated it, those who lied the best survived. Yeah? So if you have this mentality in you, yeah, then it's something different than to be grown up in Russia, in Berlin, where they claim to be the most honest people. Yeah? And here you have cultural and social clashes also in this debate about Greece now, which I think from both sides are treated very unfairly. So this, for an economist, it's difficult to handle this because we quite often like to have clear-cut directions, but one has to include it, elsewhere one would not come up with sensible results. And we have a lot of economic causes. I have here one, the lower economic freedom, so the higher government interference. The more government intervenes, the more possibility we have to bribe. Yeah, so government doesn't intervene. Indicators, again, GDP per capita and index of bribes and extra payments. So again, we have the European Value Surveys and other ones in your industry. How commonly would you estimate that firms make undocumented extra payments or bribes? This is also quite well known with the so-called envelope wages in the former East Bloc countries, yeah, that you get a second wage for doing similar things. Now if we want to estimate it, and we want to estimate it simultaneously, then you have here in the midst the shadow economy and here and corruption. And as I said, theoretically we have no clear-cut hypothesis. You have a positive and negative sign, and you have a number of causes for both and a number of indicators in which these are reflected. I will come to the estimation procedure in a minute. I will use the mimic procedures, and we move now, and I did write it also for corruption. You can also modeling shadow economy or corruption as an unobserved variable, latent variable, or obviously. And we have a structural model where we have the shadow economy and vector and with cause variables and of course error terms, and we have a measurement model in which we have the vector of indicators, yeah, and of course you can combine this model then into one. I have here now the three indicators: employment quota, change of local currency, official GDP growth, and the shadow economy. With the shadow economy is reflected in these causes which you see here, share of indirect, direct taxations, etc., up to GDP per capita. If you do this, you get out only relative estimations. You have to have another measure to calculate the shadow economy in percent of GDP or in millions of currency units. Yeah. And this method has been and still is heavily criticized, like all measures. Yeah. One is there is no theoretical guide what is a cause, what is the indicator. So you have some arbitrariness in between these. So this is one takes obvious things, but is and always keep in mind causality. Yeah? Do you have a low GDP because you have a high shadow economy, or do you have a high shadow economy because you have a low GDP? Yeah. So, here it's, I think, is most obvious. Yeah. So and you might also switch between indicators and cause variable. Yeah. So this is still a problem when doing this. And as I said, you have to have another measure. Mostly the currency demand approach is taking. The currency demand approach simply assumes that the economy are paid in cash. If you can estimate a currency demand function and isolate this currency which are used for shadow economy activities, you get a figure. Yeah? Those of you again who are econometrically interested, try to estimate a currency demand function. You run in almost all traps what you can econometrically do wrong, listed in a textbook. You have omitted variables, you have stationarity problems if you do it over 30 years or 40 years, whether you use yearly or quarterly data. You have switching signs. Look at your check card, which is a complement and substitute in one card. You can get out cash, but you can pay cashless. Yeah. So it's a real challenge, and whether you have a consistent time series for tax moral and other things is also a problem. So this method has as many weak points as the mimic measures. Now, if I show you a specification of a shadow economy before I show you then the simultaneous one with the corruption. Here you have for Italy and other OECD countries, 38 mostly highly developed OECD countries. Yeah. As causes, this is a joint work of Andreas Bühn and myself. We have personal income tax, indirect tax, tax morale, unemployment, business freedom, self-employment. Also, simple assumption if one is self-employed, there's simply more possibilities to work in the shadow economy. This one is employed here at the research institute. Rule of law, yeah, GDP growth, education, corruption. You see this here. And what comes out, you have two different specification, because you have the usual econometric problems of high correlation or multicollinearity, sometimes also of heteroscedasticity. Depends whether you have small and big countries in one sample. You have a problem to standardize this correctly. We see here for a lot of variables we get the corrector, theoretically expected sign. like in personal income tax, indirect taxes, tax morale, the higher the morale is here defined correctly. Normally, if you take the tax morale variables, it's the other way defined. So as I don't like to think over two corners, I have to define in this way. So that negative, the higher your tax morale is, the lower is your willingness to work in the shadow or to take shadow economy work, as parameters. Unemployment, self-employment, a positive sign, the higher the share in the country, the more shadow economy. Education, not all the time very robust sign. One could also say education is quite often highly correlated with income. The better you educate, the more you earn. On average, this is true. Then a simple economic calculus means, if I earn a lot, why should I work in the shadow economy? No, it's not so nice if I'm a member of a Rotary Club and then comes out that I have a shadow economy activity, etc., etc. So, but here we have a consistent negative sign, meaning the lower the education, the more is the willingness to work in the shadow economy. If we look here at GDP and currency in circulation, because this goes up to 2010. Here you have also, this might be due that a lot of European euro countries are included. Normally the current circulation is quite often highly statistically significant. And here we have the expected fine of labor. The higher the official labor force participation, the lower is the shadow economy here. So that is one action, and show you the other ones with a simultaneous equation here now with shadow economy and corruption. So I have less variables available because I do not have for so many variables reliable indicators about corruption and the thing you mean and the cause variables for corruption. So you have here the variables for the shadow economy. Government consumption is highly correlated to an overall tax burden, so one could also use this. Was better data here available for this country. Now, if we concentrate for a moment on corruption, we see government effectiveness if government is efficient, corruption is lower. If fiscal freedom is given, corruption is lower. If bureaucracy costs are higher, corruption increases. And rule of law has not a statistically significant influence. Here we have less European Union countries, euro countries, so we have a statistically significant sign of the euro countries. This is also what I said in my criticism of mimic. The mimic results are unfortunately quite often not as robust as you like. If you add another country or if you extend the time periods, things might dramatically change. So it's not so easy than if you do this normal or other economic procedures. Now, here we see the relationship between the shadow economy and corruption. We have a positive influence in corruption on shadow economy. Again, we have also here a positive. So here, the complementary effect dominates. Yeah? Again, not to give you wrong impressions, this econometric results is highly sensitive, which if you do it only for developing countries, becomes either insignificant or negatively significant. So it's not so straightforward as you would like to have it. What did we find so far for the shadow economy? What we find, which is a usual result now, tax burden and regulation, you can confirm. Also we have more cash circulars, you can confirm, and you have a smaller growth. Corruption is lower, the quality in rule of law is partly confirmed, sometimes not. With respect to education, the results are inconclusive or not confirmed. Economic freedom variable has a much better result, which is confirmed. The higher the level of corruption, the lower the level of economic development. Yeah, sometimes, but also not all the time. So you see, when you do these estimations, a lot of questions remain open, but showing you, as one can make forecasts for the official GDP, it's not so difficult, as I have all my indicators and the taxes, and I have some information what will happen in these countries. Of course, if drastic changes are happening or huge tax reform will happen, then you have to revise these figures. Now here I have an estimation for 2015. Now with your countries, you see it here in percent of official GDP. This, of course, is a problem, especially for your countries, because the Italian Statistical Office calculates shadow economy and shows it. Your country is here one of the best in the world who makes an explicit. You can look it up how much it is. Yeah? So I did not adjust for this. I must say, I wouldn't have a comparable figure. Yeah? But I'm aware of it. Not someone asks, oh, why didn't we all publish this? And the interesting thing is, this is a macro estimate, and the Italian figure from the Italian official statistical office is always somewhat lower. These figures are, of course, these macro estimates are higher because the material which is used for the production of the economy is calculated in. It's not so easy to draw the material in. So if you ask a plumber to do something in your house, he goes to a construction market and buys it. And normally he buys it legally. Of course he does. Yeah? He wants to show you the receipt and you want to have a warranty if it's a more expensive thing. So this is not, but if I would deduct or make some assumption about the material, my estimations come very close to those of the statistical office. Yeah? Very close. So, and this is an estimation done completely in a different way, because the Italian statistical office mostly uses discrepancy methods, and the Italian financial police makes estimations and then they make a macro figure. So this is quite interesting, but this is not here so that's here you have Italy with 20%, close to Spain, and you are a bit above the average. And what can one learn from such a figure? We have an east-west and south-north movement. The new European Union members, Bulgaria, Romania, Croatia, are one of the are in the top. Yeah, I have included also Turkey here, and then you have the Baltic states, and then you have southern European countries, and at the other end you have Switzerland, Austria, Luxembourg, Netherlands, yeah? And Germany has a bit higher one. Now if we look at the shadow economy thoughts that might interest you of the